What's going on, everyone? Welcome to episode 125 here on the Proven Knowledge Podcast. This is the Creator Series. Today I welcomed a mix engineer. He's originally from Belgium, moved to Los Angeles. His name is Jerome Renard. We actually connected, I believe, via the Vamper app, which I've talked about before, where you can connect with different musicians from around the world. And then that carried over to Instagram. We talked about working together eventually, but I also wanted to get him on the show to share a little bit of his story. We talked about, the different industry experiences he's had over the years, kind of just working his way up, doing a bunch of different jobs in the industry, and eventually led him to becoming a mix engineer. And he said, he really loves doing it because he can feel like he can sit there for, 14 hours plus and he still isn't tired of it. He still enjoys it. And I give him credit for that because mixing is a very hard job, and, hats off to all the engineers out there. He also gave some insight on what it's like to work, kind of the differences between, working with independent artists and artists signed to labels, and specifically, big labels as well. All the different hands that can be involved, and even how you get paid at the end of the day. So I thought that stuff was very interesting, especially from a different perspective. He talked about some of the projects he's working on. He couldn't reveal names, obviously, but he's got a lot coming up for 2023 and even 2024 as well, which I'm looking forward to. Overall, I love Jerome's real message about just being emotionally tied to your art and your work. And, you shouldn't be putting anything out that you don't feel 100% confident in, and something that isn't a reflection of you at the end of the day. And I think he does that with his work, even from a mixing standpoint, and really just the message he puts out about, he mixes with emotion. And that's how, he's garnered all this success so far, and how he's going to keep being successful and continuing to elevate. So thanks to him for his time, and I hope you guys enjoyed this episode. So without further ado, let's get into it.
Hey, man, I'm doing good. What about you?
Man, I'm doing great, and thanks for being here, obviously. And to start off every episode, we have the guest give some background. How did you get into music? How long have you been doing it? Kind of just basic information for those that might not know, you and what you do.
Yeah, sure. I started pretty early. Got my first step in the studio when I was in my late 15. So I started to be an intern around that time. So I pretty much evolve and learn everything in the studio versus learning in school.
Mm-hmm.
Spent, 6 or 8 years in that studio. So I went from the intern to the assistant to the recording engineers to becoming the main engineers.
Nice, man.
So yeah, spent quite some time there. Then left, went to work for a few studios. I went to work in Paris with Universal Music for pretty much like half a year. Mm-hmm. So that was quite an adventure. Then went to work in London and Bristol in the UK. And then a few other studios across the US, across Europe, and that was just before I started coming to the US. Came to the US for a few years and then just moved here last 5 years ago. So it's kind of a long story short, but that's been like 16 years total.
Nice, man. Well, it sounds like you've covered a lot of ground, and that's great to hear. And just like looking over your website and your Instagram and your track record so far, it's been incredible to just see the ground that you've covered. So congratulations on that. Obviously, you were born in Belgium. So what was that like, just even moving to LA? Because obviously LA is a place with a lot of opportunity, and you can meet a lot of new artists and connections. So was that really the main reason for moving to the States and going specifically to Los Angeles?
I think Los Angeles was a dream when I was a kid. It's one of those big cities in the world that's full of music, and when I started, I was dreamt that I'd be there one day. I just kind of followed that dream in a way.
Mm-hmm.
Funny things, I don't work much in LA. I think less than 5% of my clients are in LA, so in the end, it doesn't really make sense.
Mm-hmm. So how does it kind of compare to when you were a kid? Like, is it kind of what you envisioned, like when you were growing up, like what you thought LA was, as opposed to what it actually is now that you've like been there? Does it kind of like stack up to what you thought it would be?
Not at all.
In a good way or a bad way, though?
I would say in both actually.
Yeah.
Um, there's good things about LA, but there is also a lot of bad things about LA.
Hmm.
I think we envision every major city like something that's perfect at a point.
Hmm.
But when you start living the city, kind of goes the opposite. But I think we can say that for every cities, every
Yeah.
major city, we can say the same. Paris was the same, London was the same. Um, so yeah, I'm not sure what to say more about this.
Yeah, I mean that's pretty much the main points. I mean, because I've been to LA myself, and I kind of feel the same way. I don't think I'd ever want to live there, even for the connections and everything. But it's really like to each their own. And I think like especially if you're doing music or any type of art, it's like if you want to pursue it more and you want to continue to grow and elevate your career, it's almost like something you want to try out just to see how it goes. And I think for you, that's been like something that has gone very well for you. So I think it's great. And like even if you ever decided you wanted to go elsewhere, like nothing would stop you from doing that. And but it's good to hear that at least there are some good points to it. Um, I'm curious to know, like specifically, what led you to wanting to do mixing and mastering and being an engineer specifically, because there's a lot of different routes to go in music. You can be like an artist, a producer, all kinds of different professions now. So what kind of led you when you were starting out to want to do mixing specifically?
Well, I kind of did almost everything since I started as an intern. Because I started in a recording studio, so I I've been the assistant, I've been the recording engineers, I've been the mixing engineers, I've been the mastering engineers, I've been the vocal producers, I've been the editing guy, I've been almost everything that you can think of.
Hmm.
I try to produce too. I try to songwriting. Writing is definitely not for me. Definitely not for me. Production is definitely not for me. It's not the type of creative that I can do or I identify to. Always being like a nerd or tech lover. So
Hmm.
engineering always finds something in me that I don't find anywhere else. And then from going, from recording, mixing, mastering, I think it's really about finding what you love doing the most, and that you can do like 14 hours or 16 hours or 18 hours a day without being tired of it. And for me, was mixing is
Hmm.
the one I feel the most creative with.
Yeah.
Uh, Fortunately, is the one I'm the best at.
Yeah, exactly. It's good because like you get to, even when you like you're beginning and you have an interest in it, you want to try different things out. Because for me, it was like producing. Like I even tried mixing a lot of my own stuff at the beginning and just trying to figure it out. For me, that was not. I was the complete opposite. So like I tried to mix stuff and I was like just trying to bash my head in. I'm like, this is so difficult. Like this side of things. Like I give credit to people like you that are able to like sit there and perfect these songs and like really take them to the next level, because that's really, in my eyes, like the engineers don't get like enough credit still. Like they're starting to get a little more shine, but they're really the ones that can take it to the next level. They take what's really good and just elevate it even more. And to have that patience level to be able to sit there and go through each individual sound and just polish it up and make it great and really bring out the true vision of the artist at the end of the day, I think that's great. And that's awesome to hear that you're at the point where you feel like you're still comfortable with it, and obviously making more connections and everything. So hats off to you for that, man, because that's really impressive. And
Appreciate it.
is there, let's just say, like one or two songs in particular, is there anything you could think of that you've worked on before that was kind of one of the more challenging songs to be a part of? Maybe it was you had to stay in the studio for a long time to get it done, or maybe you were on like a deadline to get it done? Is there something that comes to mind? I know you've probably mixed a ton of songs at this point, but is there like an example of one that was a little more difficult than the other ones?
It's not always like a specific song. I'm not necessarily going to name people or name artists, but yeah, I had song that had to be done like in the next 12 hours. Just because the producer was late, the artist has a deadline, or the producer wanted to really redo the full production like before mixing. I don't know why. And yeah, there was a project where we got the file by 5 p.m. and it had to be sent off to mastering, like in the next 10 hours or something like that.
Yeah, I've heard.
That's.
Go ahead.
Those are crazy deadlines. It's not necessarily about the song is complicated or the producer is complicated or the artist is complicated, but more like when am I going to find time to step back from the song, at least a few hours. I think one of the big mistakes is listening to a song, working on a song for hours and hours and hours, and then be there, okay, I'm done. And you never step out of it. So you don't have any other perspective.
Yeah. And
and those deadlines, those things are usually always the hardest one.
Yeah. And that having that other perspective too, I find that very interesting because you can get lost in your own work too. You know what I mean? And I've felt that even just with myself. It's like you got to kind of get somebody else in there to give that second opinion and just see, like, are you on the right track as well? But I feel like I've heard of horror stories about like deadlines and stuff, even working until the last like hour before the release. And I just find that just crazy that people do that and everything. And so it's got to be like kind of like a stress test as well too, to kind of like get it done, but not only get it done, but like get it done right and have everybody kind of on the same page a little bit, to where it's like this, we feel comfortable releasing this, and you know it's up to the standards and everything. So it's definitely like I said, it's a lot of work, I feel like, but at the end of the day, you know, it probably still has to feel good, you know, to see that pay off and when the songs come out and everything.
Oh yeah, definitely.
Is there a big difference between working with, because I know you probably work with a lot of different artists, independent artists, people that are signed. Is there like a difference between dealing with, you know, artists at bigger labels as opposed to just people doing their own thing independently? Have you noticed any difference, or is it for you kind of all the same because your process is your process no matter what?
My process doesn't change, man. Doesn't change much if it's a side artist or indie artist. There is a few things that change, but not to the point that it's fully different. I would say the big difference between side artists and indie artists are doing either or everything themselves or working with the producers is who's involved in the project, and sometimes the quality of the production by itself. It's you either get a really great production from both sides, or you get a great production from one side only. And it's not necessarily from the signed artist you're going to get something that's like 10 times better. It can be true, because sometimes there is just like 5 producers on one song. And the level of the sound design and the production by itself is way better. Now, there is indie artists that are working with like some independent producer that just killers, and maybe you just one guy on the song, but you get something that sounds really, really good, and sometimes way better than what a label is sending you. So it's not necessarily a quality thing. It can be, of course, but it's mainly who's involved in the project the big difference with label is there is way more people involved in the project. You're often going to come across an executive producer. Your paycheck is going to be paid by someone else you don't even know sometimes. So take even like months sometimes. You usually have contracts too. You don't have contract with every indie artist that you work with, because that would be a pain.
Yeah. I was going to say, because I know like the process, I've heard obviously the process is a little bit different. I just didn't know from like the engineer's perspective specifically. I've heard of it mostly from the producer's perspective on what it's like. So I think that's great insight as well. Is there like a deal breaker? Let's say like a client comes to you, they want you to mix their song, like their new single. What is like the requirements for, even accepting that project? Because I assume that you wouldn't just be working with anybody off the street. You'd want to make sure that it's something that you can lend to and actually contribute to. So like, what do you think is the requirements for someone that wants to work with you and have you help them on their project?
The best way is to send me a demo of the song. I think it's the same for almost everyone, but working on a song that you don't like or you don't feel, it's hard. I think you can work on a song that doesn't sound as good, but where you can feel something, you can feel some emotion and some potential in it. But working on a song where first you don't even understand what they're talking about, or you cannot feel anything about it, that's where other, especially in mixing, I would say, because okay, our job is to make things sound good, but we cannot make things sound good if the production was not good before, if the production didn't sound good earlier. But that's only a part of our job. This is only the technical side. There is a big emotional side in mixing where our real job is really to put the emotion out, to take the listener on a journey, to underline every little thing that the singers or the songwriting team put in the song. It's not just about, hey, that bass is nice, let's make it big, and that synth, let's make it small, and let's have the singers just in the front, and that we can. No, it's about that. It's all about underlying those little emotion, those little movement, trying to find ideas to create a bit of movement in the production or in this instrumentation, to make a bit more space for vocals or a specific line in the vocals, to just get something more out of it. Yeah. Or your approach mix has never been technical, but really been the human side, the emotional side of it.
And that's really the best way to do it. That kind of covered my next question, because I was gonna ask you about that, because I had seen on your website specifically you talked about, how you kind of channel emotion into what you do and like the songs you mix and everything. And I thought that was great. Like that stood out to me, because a lot of people, they don't approach it that way. As much as like as how sad that can be sometimes, it's like a lot of people are more like they're just transactional. They're not really thinking about the overall song. They're just like, as long as I'm getting paid and we're continuing to push this work out, like that's all that matters. But it's like, I think the listeners can tell at the end of the day too, if the real emotion is in there, because it's really about creating the feeling. Like you said, it's like you can tell when somebody doesn't have their heart in what they're doing, and you might not think it like as you're going sometimes, or as you're creating these records, but I feel like everybody has to be kind of conscious of, are they really doing this for the right reasons and everything. And I think for you, that's something that stood out to me, was just, you're willing to put your all into what you're doing. And that shows that you actually care about it. And, I think that's why a lot of people have come to you for work as well, just because you've shown that to them. And so I commend you for that, because that's definitely admirable, man.
Yeah, I appreciate it. But, I think in the end I think everyone wants to connect with the song, either the artist connect with his own song, the producer and the engineers are going to connect with it too. And I think if everyone really connect with a song, then there is more potential for the audience to connect with it.
Mm-hmm.
You know, if the artist put all his heart in it, and the producer did the same, the engineers did the same, I think all this reinforce the connection. You know.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, totally agree with that, and that's really just goes back to everyone being on the same page and just contributing their own special way to each song and each album as well. So that's incredible stuff, man. So I know that you probably can't reveal a ton of stuff as far as like what's going to be coming out or stuff. You might not even know some stuff, but is there anything that maybe you're working on that we can be on the lookout for, like coming up that fans should kind of look for?
That's a great question. There is always, I think I work on 10 to 20 songs a month right now. There is a bunch of indie artists in there. There is a few label projects that are pretty interesting. I think there's a project I'm working on that's pretty long. I think it's about like 18 song album. The artist is going for like a full story in between songs, so it's really going back to albums like we used to do it. I don't know, even before I started, where you were listening to an album from song 1 to song 10, and you had a full story.
Mm-hmm.
You know? And it's trying to bring that back into a 18 song album. That's going to be a long project. So we only started with song 1, and I think I even think this is like a 2024 release, not a 2023 release. So
I was about to say you got a ways to go then, but
yeah. But I think that's going to be an interesting project for everyone involved in, but also for the audience that's going to hear that in the end.
Yeah, see, I'm an albums guy, so whenever that comes out, I'll probably be looking for it, whoever it is, because I still feel like there's power in those full projects as opposed to just like singles and things like that. Like obviously it's different, it's a different era, but there's still those music fans that love that type of release. So that's great to hear though.
So I think this one will be interesting. I'm really curious to see how it's going to unfold fully in the end.
Mm-hmm.
And the others, like I said, I really work on projects that I can feel and then I like. So for me, there is a lot of great things in this. I think the easiest is just to watch out what's coming up.
Yeah, man. Well,
it's if you like it.
Yeah, it's great to hear that you got a lot of stuff still in the works. So, I'm definitely gonna be on the lookout, and I'm sure you'll be posting about stuff as well as it comes out. We'll all be able to see that. So, last few questions here. These are ones I ask on every episode. The first one is, if you could go back 10 years ago, maybe give yourself a piece of advice, or maybe not change anything at all, what do you think you would do?
Jump on any opportunities. Don't think too much. Just jump on the opportunities, take it, and see where it brings you.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's a big one. I think when we're young, we either overthink things a bit too much, and sometimes lose some opportunities.
Yeah. Sometimes I think we're like scared of it too. You know what I mean? If you see an opportunity, you might not have the confidence even to try. But I love that because you never know where it's going to end up. So that's great.
Yep.
So if we flip that then and we say 10 years from now, where do you think you envision yourself continuing in your career and your life as well?
That's always a hard one. Never been a big fan of sharing where I'm going or my goals, but you'll still be hearing about me for sure. I will probably not be in LA anymore. And I think bigger and bigger projects. Because I think that's where things goes. If you keep evolving, you just growing, and everyone's around you is growing. So
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think the best way to like know if you're growing too, like you could just look back at your old work and just be like, I've come a long way. You know what I mean? So I think as long as you're still doing that, you're moving in the right direction. That's how I always look at it. So, but I feel you there because you don't want to look too far ahead. It's hard because so many things can happen. But yeah, I love that about just kind of just continuing the elevation for sure. So do you have any final words of wisdom today for the listeners?
I don't know. I think everyone should make sure that they work on something that they really love, that they can feel, they can enjoy, and not running after a paycheck. Because you're just going to be proud of the song that you really enjoy. You know, in the end, it's just about that. You're not going to share the work that you're not proud of. So make sure that you can connect with the song, that you enjoy working with the people you work with. I think that's a big one too.
Got to keep it genuine at the end of the day, man.
Yeah, and find project that excite you.
Yeah, I love that.
Either it's an engineering thing or writing or production. You know, I never stop working. Yeah, always keep it going.
100%, man. Well, Jerome, I appreciate it, man. I appreciate the time. That's all I have for you today. And I look forward to connecting again really soon. Obviously, you got a lot of stuff coming out, so congrats. Congrats on where you're at, where you're headed, and thank you again.
Yeah, thank you, man.
So
sure,
I appreciate that.
Pleasure.
Thanks, everyone, for listening today. That was episode 125. We'll be back this time next week. As always, hit the support button on your podcast streaming platform if you'd like to send any funds. Feel free to leave us that 5-star rating if you enjoyed today's episode. So we'll see you then. Thanks, everyone.